pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to the Des Moines County Board of Supervisors meeting, September 23rd, 2025. Is there any changes to the agenda?
I have none.
I have none.
I have none.
Police Department head elected official Sarah Doty.
Good morning. Plenty of irons in the fire right now. We got absentee voting going on for the primary, and I'm working on getting ballots and stuff in order for the city school. So just plugging away.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Colin, how's the IT department?
Good morning. Just keeping busy like we always do, but nothing really new to report to the board except for Friday's my last day this week, so.
Sure.
Thank
Hey, take that smile off.
It hasn't gone through the board yet. Okay.
Thank you, Mom.
Sheriff Glendenning.
Good morning. We've got plenty going on as well. Working on some emergency operation plans with local schools. We have one of our inmates that unfortunately has to be in the hospital right now, and we're providing 24/7 security for that person, which really taxes our correctional officer staff and deputy staff. So, but we were providing that at the time and working on an answer for that. The jail this morning was at 75 adults, 1 juvenile. We have 6 out of county. We have 3 waiting on competency and restoration. That timeline continues to worsen. I think we always feel the effects of mental health in Iowa and how to address it, but the unfortunate truth is they end up in our jails, and then we have to go through a process to make sure that they're able to move forward with trial. That process takes a lot of time, so we end up sitting on them, and they can be months at a time. In the end, that list is getting longer, and we're looking for answers on that. We're working with Iowa DOC and Iowa DHHS to try to find a plan together and work together in the future on that, but that continues to be a challenge for us. We had 4 on the wait list for the residential facility this morning, and that timeline continues to be a challenge as well. So that's the status of the jail, and we got plenty of other things happening, but that's about it for the board today.
Okay, thanks, Kevin.
Yes, sir.
Rodney Blazer, maintenance.
Good morning. First off, I want to thank Colin for his service. So he's been a pleasure to work with for a lot of years. So we're definitely going to miss him. Worked a lot hand in hand with him on a lot of projects. So we're going to miss him, but wish him the best.
Thank you.
Other than that, we got a lot of stuff going on. An update on the new public health building. The contractors are there, took the garage doors off, or panels off, garage doors off. Mason should be there at the end of this week or early next week. Get that fixed up, the new doors on, and the panels back on, and then fix up a couple of concrete areas right after that. So that's moving right along. Other than that, just a lot of stuff going on, getting ready for winter. And, I think we have an internal posting for a job in our department, so once that goes through, if there's no internal posting, then we'll have a job listing, can announce that next week, going out, so be looking at, if anybody knows any good people looking for a job, send them to the Des Moines County website once we get that posted. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Angie Vaughn, safety.
Good morning. Don't really have anything to share. Keeping busy as usual, so just keep it on.
Okay, thank you. Janelle, how's the treasurer's office?
Good morning. Busy. The post office box was full yet again yesterday. So, but this is the next to the last reminder that property taxes, first half property taxes, are due next Tuesday, September the 30th.
Okay, thank you. Shannon, emergency management?
Hi, good morning. I don't really have anything exciting for the board.
Okay, that's good. Chris Lee, conservation.
Good morning. We've got all sorts of events and stuff on the calendar. I just encourage everybody to follow us on socials, Starscape Nature Center on Facebook. We've got all the events on there. You can follow Moines County Conservation on Facebook, or go to our website. Just a whole bunch of events. Our Nature Center staff is really working hard at putting some cool events together. So I give them kudos for all that hard work. That is a quite the lift to do as much as we do and connect as many people as we do to the outdoors and that kind of stuff. So a bunch of different things going on in that respect. Otherwise, just kind of packing along, kind of enjoying this rather nice weather.
You got to start his cave this afternoon, or this morning with New London School.
Yeah, we're in field trip season now. School's going and stuff, and so.
Yeah, I had a chance to take that trip, but I couldn't because I had to be down here.
Oh man,
I know it.
I guarantee they're having way more fun over there.
I bet they are too. Jared, how's regional planning?
Doing pretty good. It's a very busy late summer, early fall here for land use. We don't have anything on the regular agenda today, but I anticipate having a couple minor subdivisions ready within the next few weeks, and then a couple of mid-sized subdivisions. We'll have to go through the zoning commission first, looking at sometime in October. So it's nothing right at the moment, but expect plenty in the coming month or so.
Okay, thank you. Trent, how's the attorney's office?
Steady, just keep moving along. Here we got the work session after this. We have this afternoon and then later this week we're doing interviews for office manager, so that's good. That'll be good to fill that position.
Okay, thank you. Brian Carter, Secondary Roads.
Good morning. Plenty of stuff going on. Finally got some moisture, so we've got the motor graders out, which is a great thing. Try to take care of some washboards and still doing some ditching, although we'll take today off with some of the moisture we had. But we are ditching on 190th, which is the road that runs by John Deere into the kind of comes in the other way from into Big Hollow. So anybody that travels that need to be careful. We have signs up and stuff, but there is a fair amount of traffic on that road. So plenty of stuff still going on. We temporarily wrapped up concrete patching, and we are getting ready to close Skunk River Road, which we'll send out a press release for. It may have already gone out, I'm not sure, for the next 2 or 3 days out to the west of Augusta. We have a larger double culvert out there that needs to be replaced. Bottom of it's clear gone, so the guys will start working on that. And I mentioned something last week. I was trying to work through the DOT and through their contractor to come up with some sort of a plan, not so much us to come up with a plan, but for them to come up with a plan to help accommodate some of the oversized equipment, because it's give or take 10 miles to get kind of from a road to the south that would be suitable for a large piece of equipment to the south of Mediapolis all the way up to the K Road, which is up by the truck stop north of Mediapolis there at Highway 78, the Newport Junction there. I got a message back from the DOT, and either them or the contractor plan on doing any special accommodations for farmers. So
you said they don't plan on doing it?
They do not. No, the answer back I received was the county's welcome to do it if they're welcome to accept the liability. To which I said no, we're not going to accept that liability. So, so anybody out there with that, I guess they're welcome to call us and we can give them a contact point. But ultimately, they're going to have to talk to the DOT and they can explain all of that situation. So, I did what I could, chased what I could, and I don't think either 260th, which is closed, or 235th, which is what we call school loop. I don't think either one of those have an opening of at least before November 1st is what I'm being told, and I won't be surprised to see those possibly even after that. So just kind of out there for that, and other than that, a lot of stuff going on, but that's what's the summary of it, I guess. Any questions?
Nope.
Okay.
I'll be right back.
We'll be here.
I ran Jim straight out of here. So, and I would echo, I wish Colin the best. I hope this next endeavor is great for him and his family and goes very well.
I want to reiterate on that. I think Colin is being quite selfish.
I will second that.
And I just want that documented for the record. I just want that documented for the record.
Moving on to correspondence, has anybody here got any correspondence?
I have not.
I think we all got correspondence here, if I can find it, it's on my phone. I did answer it. And I did check my email, and I flagged it, but I can't find it. Sorry about that, folks.
Maybe I'll come back to you before the meeting's over with.
Yeah. I'll get back and I will read that email before the meeting's over. Other than that, I don't have any other correspondence. Moving on to discussion and vote. The City of Danville, Moines County Law Enforcement Agreement for fiscal year 25-26. And Kevin, did you want to address this?
Sure, this is the annual law enforcement agreement we have with Danville. We did this with the city of Danville back in December of 24. It was put in the budget, and when we ran the group of contracts through the board, this one didn't get ran through, so this is just up for board's approval.
And it's for $77,792 per year with a monthly installment of $6,482.67.
I move to approve. Second.
Sarah?
Shane McCampbell.
Yep.
Tom Broker.
Yes.
Jim Carrey.
Yes. Okay, now we have a Class C liquor license for the Tipsy Traveler. Everything looks like it's in order here. Do you have any objections, Sheriff?
No, sir, I think that business does business throughout Des Moines County. We haven't had any issues, so no issues there.
Motion to approve. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't hear you. Sarah?
Shane McCampbell.
Yes.
Tom Broker.
Yes.
Jim Carrey.
Yes. Now we have the annual liquor license for the Spirit Hollow Clubhouse. And everything is in order here. Any problem, Sheriff?
The same, I would agree if everything's in order and no issues or concerns.
Okay, thank you.
Motion to approve. Second.
Sarah?
Tom Broker.
Yes.
Shane McCampbell.
Yep.
Jim Carrey.
Yes. Now we have an appointment to Tama Township Trustee. The Des Moines County Board of Supervisors, I'm requesting your approval to be appointed to complete the remainder of a 4-year term expiring on December 31st, 2028 for Tama Township. Laverne R. Neal.
Motion to approve.
Excuse me, I'm not through that. The Township of Laverne R. Neal. Thank you, Carl Gersh.
Motion to approve.
Okay.
Second.
Sarah?
Shane McCampbell.
Yes.
Tom Broker.
Yes.
Jim Carrey.
Yes.
I have a quick question. That was confusing to me. Who's getting appointed? Which
Carl
one?
Gersh.
Carl Gersh.
Okay,
Laverne
thank
is the clerk,
you. Okay,
and he
thank
signed
you.
his name at the top of there.
Now we have a bid invitation for a public health building. Notice to bidders. Property 522 North 3rd Street, Burlington, Iowa. Sealed bids will be accepted by the county auditors of Des Moines County at her office in Burlington, Iowa until 3:30 p.m. on Thursday, October the 16th, 2026.
25.
It says 26.
Yeah,
Let's
there was a
change
typo,
that.
I think, on there.
That is 2025 for the work listed below. A certified check, cashier's check, or letter of credit may be payable to Des Moines County, drawn upon a solid bank, shall be filed with each bid in the amount as set forth in the bid. Failure to provide payment in full within 30 days of the date of the acceptance of the bid, we will be just and a sufficient cause for the denial and award of the forfeiture of the purchase. All bids must be filed on the forms furnished by the county, sealed bids, and plainly marked bids containing any reservations not provided for the forms furnished may be rejected, and the county board reserves the right to waive technicalities and to reject any and all bids below $125,000. We're gonna have a scheduled date, open to review bids on October 21st. Bids are due on October 16th, October 15th, open house, October the 8th, an open house, and October 1, an open house. The October 1 will be from 11:30 to 1 p.m. and October the 8th will be 11:30 to 1 p.m. But October the 15th will be from 4:30 to 6 p.m.
Sounds pretty thorough to me.
Yep.
I make a motion to accept that bid invitation in its present form.
Second.
Sarah?
Tom Broker,
Yes.
Shane McCampbell,
Yes.
Jim Carrey.
Yes. Okay, so we have personnel action for local health. We have Wendy Noble, LPN, new hire, LPN, $49,150.40 annually, effective 9/15/2025.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Sarah?
Shane McCampbell,
Yes.
Tom Broker,
Yes.
Jim Carrey.
Yes. We have one for the county attorney's office. It's Cassie Gilby, assistant county attorney. Unpaid leave, 26 hours, 9/2 to 9/5/2025.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Sarah?
Tom Broker,
Yes.
Shane McCampbell.
Yep.
Jim Carrey.
Yes. We have the minutes of the regular meeting on October 16th, 2025.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Sarah?
Tom Broker,
Yes.
Shane McCampbell.
Well, I still can't find in here about Colin's selfishness, but if we can just get that next week's notice, that would be appreciated. I'll second that.
Jim Carrey.
Sarah? Yes, yes. Okay, is there any other business?
I have none. I have none.
Agenda items?
I have none.
I have none. Committee report?
I have none.
I have.
I had an early childhood meeting. I'll get my stuff sorted out here. Just, the state, with all the wisdom they've got, decided to realign with childhood and, I'll give each one of you a map here to see what we're dealing with. We have been in Region 6 for some time, and now all of a sudden we're putting this in Region 7. We're going right up the river. We're up to Dubuque County. We're gonna have Lynn County, Johnson County, big counties.
Does this match the mental health and disability services region?
No, this is,
District.
it's gonna be probably the same as the same map.
That's what I mean, it matches.
It's gonna match up pretty close to it. I don't know where they get their wisdom from, but, you know, we're clear up in Blackhawk County, that's quite a ways off. And Lee County, it's sitting down here, they're going in with, this is, our funding, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It looks to me like our local funding might be going north. So,
And what's this for again?
this is for early childhood and school ready. Early childhood and school ready, where we fund some of the preschools around and prenatal buildings, go into the hospitals and help mothers with newborns. Anyway, would you ask for them over there?
Thanks.
Okay. Public input, we'll give the public 2 minutes to either call in at 319-753-8203 extension 4 or email board@dmcounty.com. We'll give you 2 minutes for that. Meanwhile, anybody in the audience have anything to say?
Colin, do you want to say something for yourself?
So, Colin Gers, 1614 Cambridge Drive. I just want to thank all the department heads that, in the county, just in general, for, being here a little over 19 years. Really have enjoyed it. Wouldn't have stuck around as long as if it wasn't for the great people I got to work with day in, day out. And, working with the board's been great. 2 out of the 3 members. I'll decide which one is
Appreciate your honesty,
But honestly, for Des Moines County folks, I want them to realize like how hard, the folks that in this room and in the county in general work to try to, make services for them and also try to be fiscally responsible. And I know this board has tried pretty hard to, do that as well. But they work really hard. They really do. I get to see it day in and day out. Our office is probably one of the more fortunate offices. We get to go around each one of the offices and pick on them day in and day out. Everybody's been great to work with, and everyone's really patient. And I just want to say thank you, overall. So
Thank you, Colin.
thank you.
All the best to you, Colin. All the best to you.
What? I haven't been just reading personal emails. Sent so.
Well, folks, I'm sorry I can't find that email, but the lady that wrote it,
Would you like for me to read it?
yes. I could not find it.
I could tell you were having, but this is the letter that I wrote to all 3 of the Board of Supervisors. And I am proud to say that I got a response from 2 of them. My letter read like this: Dear Board of Supervisors, first and foremost, I want to thank each of you for your commitment to serve our county in the capacity you do. You have proven you take your position seriously and make decisions for the betterment of Des Moines County. I also want to thank you for being able to sift through factual information and information that may have been misleading pertaining to the wind turbine project. It's no secret the concerns that this project brings with it. But it enlightens me that you are so deeply committed to researching and having conversations with people to educate yourself on this issue. I know for a fact that Mr. Broker had an informative conversation with a family member of mine and listened to and appreciated his points of view. Many of the landowners that I have talked to do not feel the need to be so visibly loud about this topic. It is very disheartening that landowners get accused of being greedy when all they want to do is use the land that they own and be the most productive they can with it. Again, thank you for your time and effort put forth to this project and for the betterment of Des Moines County. And my name is Patty Jo Oberman Patton, if you didn't already know that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't know why I can't find it. I just figured out why I couldn't find it when I emailed you back. It said Jim.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have anything to say? We shall adjourn. We're gonna have a work session in about 5 minutes. And it's to do with the wind ordinance review. Thank you. with, the county attorney's office and, regional planning office. And it's to do with the wind ordinance review, is what we've done so far. So I'll turn this over to Zach, Jared, and Trent.
Go ahead.
I don't know if you had anything to
No,
start with.
I don't necessarily have anything to start with, if you just wanna jump into it.
So basically, we'll be going through the chapters that have previously been discussed at work sessions and the list of changes that have been made since then. So we'll start with the 4 chapters at the end of the ordinance that relate to road use, wildlife monitoring, emergency response, and then decommissioning. So I can go through each section, and then if anybody has comments along the way, any questions from the board or anything, we can go through those individually. So, and starting with in the order in the ordinance, the first one of those would be the road use and mitigation of damages. I will note before we get into the specifics here, a common theme of this chapter of the latest edits is streamlining the structure of this section. Previously, it was pretty much concerned with the initial.
You're gonna ask you, tell them what page you're on,
Oh,
so everybody won't be.
I'm sorry. This is Article 10, which is on page 37.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
And from there, we're pretty much going in order through those last four sections. So,
Does everybody have the most current, or do I need to run copies?
I don't have it.
Okay, that's 2 copies. Anybody going once, going twice?
Do you have the
I
most
think
current?
these are the
Do
same
you have the most
from,
current?
the ordinance, I don't think has been changed, has it?
No.
not in the last 2 weeks.
Not in the last 2 weeks.
That's
There's
still,
just a
Okay,
handout on what's changed or what's under discussion and questions that were
so there
brought
is no current that needs
What-
to be.
up.
Okay, great.
I'm not speaking for you intentionally here. Like I said, I guess there's a handout that shows the things
Well, that's to follow along.
to
with what we're
follow
doing.
along with what's being discussed and
Right.
some of the questions that have been raised.
Yep.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Brian asked if we needed to make copies, and I said, I don't know, but I think the same ordinance from
I'll go run one.
September 5th.
Or in 2.
Okay, so we're looking at first at the Article 10 road use, and so a common theme of that chapter is that it had previously been structured almost entirely based on the initial construction of a wind or solar farm, and then we had added a section in at the end that briefly touched on road use in the event that, first for the planned decommissioning, but then also any other type of, if there was decommissioning as a result of damage or repowering. So to improve the flow of the information here so that it applies where it's supposed to, we modified it so that it addresses all stages of a project in which a road use plan would be necessary. And so the first change within section A is simply to modify where it referred only to the construction of a wind or solar or battery. It now just says associated with wind, solar, or battery, since it covers those multiple stages. And then section B is where much of those changes occurred in terms of consolidating the information together. So there's a statement that says, prior to any usage of local roadways for transport of oversized equipment for wind, solar, or battery. And so the first statement refers to the initial construction, where it previously just said construction. Number 2 now refers to the planned decommissioning, where it's the end at the end of life of a wind or solar farm, and the whole thing is being taken down. And then that, as it already said, that the engineer must be provided with must be contacted at least a year before that to start the process of developing the agreement for that. Then there's a statement specifically referring to the targeted repowering or decommissioning within the operational lifespan of the facility. So this would be either the result of some kind of damage to part of the facility, or just the the developer may determine the need to upgrade what they already have, so making modifications to the existing equipment. So in that case, the engineer would need to be contacted 30 days prior to the transport of the equipment to plan for that. And then finally, there's a statement here.
I've got,
Modifications should be a separate permit though, right?
Well, we're specifically referring to road use, so this is just acknowledging any situation
it
where.
might be an emergency, we've talked about emergencies, you know, in the 30. My question, Brian's actually gone right now, but anyway, it says no less, because we want, if there's some sort of an emergency situation.
Right,
We want it down and out
right,
in 30 days.
right.
So, and I don't think part of the advantages is to taking it down is that you can take it apart. You don't need that huge equipment
Mm-hmm.
to pick up a blade or a turbine or something like that. It can be cut up in smaller pieces. So, Brian will be back in a minute, and I've got a question about the 30 days for that. I don't want somebody to say, well, we've got 30 days to give that information to the, you see what I'm saying?
Right, I get it.
We're gonna bring in a small crane rather than a big crane.
Right.
And, so I'd like his input on that.
Okay, and we don't want language in there talking about modification of the agreement, because part of the cases out there, there's a body of the cases where you have a government entity gives permit for project A, and then developer and or operator comes in years later and significantly changes the contract or modifies from that original permit, and the government entity, so same government entity, is no longer on board with that, and then they cancel it based on that modification. And that's one where developers or operators really try to beat governments over the head.
Right. So, but in this case, this is referring specifically to the road use agreement. So that would be covered in the permitting section where it specifies that.
I understand that,
yeah.
what I'm saying, but if we talk about in the ordinance.
We've already talked about modifications because I believe it was Melanie, is it Patton?
Yeah.
Anyway,
Like
was here and told us that
repower.
we should, repowering, I think is what the word she used, which would be modification, that we were gonna put in the ordinance.
But yeah, repowering though, that's still be in line with the original permit, right? I mean, but a modification may not. So say if you have a permit for a solar panel that's 10 by 10, and they wanna modify it, they're bringing in a 20 by 20.
Well, that's
Solar
the same thing
panel.
on repowering, is you're gonna put bigger blades on it.
Well, but, I mean, you guys can do what you want, but that's just.
No, I'm
That's
just
one of the
saying, I
areas
think that modification would be essentially the same as, modification wouldn't be creating something entirely new. It would be modification of an existing installation, is the way I would read it.
Right.
Well,
It's, I was gonna say, it doesn't use the word modification.
I was just referring to just scenarios in which
Okay.
potentially a blade or solar panels would be swapped out and replaced at some point. And realistically, a lot of that's probably going to be something of the same dimensions anyway, or it could be the result of damage where they decide to bring in a replacement. So the last statement under section B was something that's specifically requested by secondary roads, just so we have a statement in there somewhere that specifically says, under no circumstances shall any oversized equipment associated with construction, repowering, or decommissioning be transported on Des Moines County roadways prior to the adoption of a road use agreement covering those activities. So just a general statement that sums up everything here, that all that needs to be put in place before they start moving that equipment in. And then section C, this one is, the only modifications here were for consistency with the other sections. So in number 1 and number 2, the word decommissioning was added in there, so it says construction or decommissioning, so that it's a catch-all that covers all of that. And then I believe this is also requested by Secondary Roads, the item F under section 2. That there was a section here added that says a description of the planned communication process between the county engineer and developer. That second one is supposed to be operator. I can fix that. So the developer, owner, and/or operator during the development of the agreement and throughout the construction, repowering, or decommissioning. So this will need to include details regarding the timing, location, and format of meetings, and coordination of reviewing and refining the draft document prior to adoption. So this is basically just providing a framework that during, as it's not going to be instantaneously, you're going to have a plan and it's good to go. There's going to be some communication back and forth as the county fine tunes that agreement with and the specifications with the developer. So that's all I had for the section on road use and mitigation. We could always come back.
We can
Yeah.
go back with Mr. Carter.
Right. Yeah, it just worked out that way. Well, we can go back as needed. But so the section Article 11 on page 41, wildlife monitoring and mitigation. The additions in this section are largely the result of some comments that have been submitted by Conservation Director Chris Lee. We thank him for taking the time to review the draft we had initially presented and providing some comments there. So we looked into some of those individual suggestions there and incorporated those into the existing document wherever appropriate. So to start out under the submission requirements, which is section B, the first statement there references that field studies documenting wildlife conditions must be submitted, and so this was greatly expanded with some additional information. Number one, ensuring that be conducted by a licensed third-party professional, and also specifying within the proposed project area of the wind or solar, just to ensure that the scope of that is clear as how much of an area would need to be assessed for that. And then two additional conditions here were included. One, that the field studies must be conducted in compliance with the land-based wind energy guidelines from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and that they shall include, but not be limited to, acoustic bat monitoring, migratory bird observations, radar monitoring, raptor and eagle nesting surveys, and assessments of wetlands, riparian corridors, and hibernacula. So that's specifically the wording that was recommended there from County Conservation to give some context to that study. And then, any thoughts on that? Anything, Chris? That's pretty good. And then section 2, just a slight change there, where it said formal documentation. So that was modified to just use documentation, since the word really wasn't adding anything there. And then also, it said, initially said Des Moines County Conservation, DNR, and/or U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and so that was modified to say and, just to ensure that all of those would be incorporated there, and not just anyone would suffice, that they all need to be involved in that process. So moving ahead to there's a subsection, so item 5, subsection C. Currently, the existing ordinance draft said an increase in distance beyond the minimum required setback. This is one of the things that may be required as part of the mitigation process.
What page are you on, Jerry?
I'm sorry, it's page 42 at the top. So section 5 is a description of any measures to be implemented during the design and construction of the facility, and it's to address topics such as So it lists a number of topics there. And so section C was already in there, and it's referring to the possibility to increase the distance between the components of the wind or solar farm and a public conservation area. And it what's been added is that it says that this is in order to be consistent with the recommendations of DNR and or the Fish and Wildlife Service based on what the comments provided regarding a particular species or type of habitat area. So that what was initially somewhat vague is clarified that has to be in reference to some sort of standard there. And then the following item, subsection D, it refers to restoration efforts to establish a replacement wildlife habitat at an off-site location in any instance where habitat losses are deemed to be unavoidable as the way the project is designed. And so just simply added the word sensitive in there to refer to sensitive habitat losses, and also referred to the fact that this is following consultation with those county, state, and federal conservation agencies. So if anybody has any comments on that, we can move on to section C.
Let me back up, or go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't want to disturb the meeting, but at the same time, you mentioned that if there was a problem, that they would be cutting these blades up.
I'm gonna go back to ask Ryan about that back now. The moment you walked out, we have a question for you. Go back to page 30.
We can go back to that and resume.
Yeah.
That's
I had my hand
page
up.
what, I'm sorry?
You didn't see me there, Tom, that's okay, I'm sorry.
37.
I'll get it higher. Anyway, the state of California has a terrible time with derelict boats. They can't saw them up anymore. You talk about getting these blades up if something does happen on a roadway. We've got to get it out right now for traffic. There's a lot of fiberglass gets in the air, and if this would happen by somebody's farm, and he has animals or even his own kids or anything, they're going to be breathing this fiberglass that's floating around in the air. I didn't hear a stipulation on I know we're not California, we don't have those kind of laws yet, but we probably will come at some point. But that fiberglass, if it happens, like I say, in front of somebody's house, this is really going to be bad. And how are we going to destroy it and twist it and get around? The EPA is probably going to jump on you also.
I've spoken to a company that's what they do, is they either take these down or take them down in a planned demolition, or if there's been an emergency of some sort. And that's what they do, is they like we mentioned, to get it down in 30 days, they either have a small explosive at the bottom, they take out part of the bottom and they fall over like a tree, or they hook a cable to them and pull them down. And then once it's on, when you build those things, you have to have huge machinery. You have to have 500 or 600 ton cranes crawling around. It costs, if you're gonna bring one of those on site, it's gonna probably cost $200,000 to get it on site, assembled and unassembled and taken off site. And it takes a while, like you gotta schedule them. So our goal, what we want, what really made me more comfortable since I've been a mechanics bill, is a lot of the problems up there is because those blades hung in the air for months with wind blowing through them, and they didn't have, I don't think they had any ordinance or any agreement that they were gonna take those down. And anyway, bad deal, but they were up. So when I spoke to that company, and I went on YouTube and I watched a bunch of that stuff happening, and we talked about it a couple weeks ago, whatever it was, and they can pull those over. They said they could do that and clean up. They said they go around where you have something like that. They said they break everything. They said if they have to, they said they pull up or remove an inch or two of topsoil to get it out of there. But that way they can get it out of there. You don't have to wait on a 500-ton crane. You cut it down, you fall it down. Once it's down, you can take it apart with small essentially hand tools and use it with small equipment. So it's cheaper to get it out of there, and we don't have to worry about it being in the air. The question I was gonna ask Mr. Carter is if he'll go to page 37 on B3. Where it says for any targeted repowering or decommissioning within the lifespan, the owner operator shall contact the county engineer no less than 30 days prior to the planned transportation. I guess, and that's fine if it's planned, but in one of those emergency situations where we want it down, I was in the business a little bit, I learned a lot more about county permits after I got here. But anyway, to even some small equipment, but the equipment they could use on that, I would assume from my experience, would be, some of it might be on low boy, but it would be a standard low boy. And we don't want to wait 30 days for them to contact the county engineer and get permission. Go that we want to.
Permitting process doesn't take us 30 days.
Well,
If that's what you're asking.
No, well, that's what I mean. I don't want to wait 30 days after they've got it. And they said, well, we have 30 days to contact the county engineer about getting any equipment here. I think it should, I'd like it to say something like this does not apply except in cases of emergency or whatever the language is we've already got in there for those.
Come up with a quicker turnaround for an emergency situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can tell you, as far as the moving permit side of things, we won't be the holdup for being able to handle. If they have something oversized, overweight, the permitting process is pretty straightforward, and we obviously make sure, depending on where they're coming, that they're not crossing a bridge or something that, won't meet it. But other than that, the only way there would be an extension or extra time, like when you get up to the far northwest corner of the county, for instance, there's a couple bridges up there that are posted, and in that situation, if that was their only way in, there would have to be a rating by our consulting firm that they pay for to make sure that they could cross those safely. But other than that, timing-wise, it won't take anything. So I see no reason why this can't be a quicker time to bring.
I'm just saying I don't want them to wait 30 days to contact you.
Yeah.
I want to leave it to say they have to have it down and out in 30 days.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's.
I was thinking of this backwards, I think, and now that you talk about it, because this says they gotta contact you 30 days ahead, so you're well aware, but if it's
something would
if
happen.
they need to get in there next
So
week,
we
and it's
need
gotta
to-
be 30
we
days in
gotta be
advance,
down-
yeah, I see
down
what
and
you're
out 30
saying.
days.
So just for some context here, I agree, we can clarify that there's in an emergency situation that could be shortened, but the 30 days was specifically referring to, say a turbine, for example, is just malfunctioning and they find it's just not working properly anymore and they want to replace it and repower it. So that in that situation, 30 days maybe would make more sense. Say we're just doing this one turbine here that is not damaged, but it needs to be replaced. So.
And I just like the idea that they can wait to 30 days to contact Brian.
My recollection is that in an emergency situation, we want it down in 30 days.
Yeah. Down and out.
So I think it
30
just
days.
needs to be clarified and the wording adjusted.
Okay. And what about any sort of well, okay, if you're gonna do it, that would be, otherwise if it's a plan, they should, need to get a hold of Brian prior to doing anything that they plan to do. He gets 30 days to issue a permit or anything.
Yeah,
That works, doesn't it?
These places that do this kind of stuff do permitting all the time. I mean, they'll have somebody committed to that because they're moving from site to site to site. And that's normally the first person that contacts us is to, if nothing else, ask about, if they're not familiar with our state, ask about that process. Because in all odds, if they're coming from anywhere else, they'll have a state permit that they'll have done. And we actually piggyback off the state permit. I won't say exclusively, but a lot of the time. So it's not it might take longer to get a permit from the state than it will from us. So the permitting side of it won't be a holdup. So I think getting it down in 30 days is very doable for that type of situation.
I just wanted to take that out of there so they don't have 30 days to contact you.
Yeah.
They have 30 days to get it out of there.
I think that's what we intended.
Thank you.
Well, the only trouble I have with this is that we're gonna replace the soil. most of these are gonna be up in CSR 90 and above. And where is the county gonna get, and how big of an area are we gonna have to go, and how deep are we gonna have to go, and where are we gonna get CSR 90 soil? We can get clay everywhere. But these are gonna be placed in premium soil up around yonder. So you say, okay, we're gonna take out 3 acres, 5 acres, whatever it's gonna take. However, how far the wind blows this stuff, it might be 10 or 15 acres.
That would be the operator.
So now we're gonna bring a bunch of clay back into a guy's farm and he's gonna be happy. Or a non-participating farm, and here comes the lawsuit.
We have some statements in the final article on decommissioning that address that. So if we want to, we can discuss that when we get to that.
Yeah, but it's our intention that the county doesn't have to find that soil.
That's
Whoever's
actually-
gonna replace it.
I will mention, that's actually one of the things we have focused on, and I think it's a legitimate question. When we went to Mechanicsville, that was one of the top things we came away with, among a couple other factors, obviously, was the soil side of it, because that was one of their fights up there, and we wanted to try to do our best to address that exact thing for some of the issues they had, which appears to me, from experience up there, that fire is the most likely dynamic that causes an issue with the soil, because that's allowed that fiberglass to do what it did. If it just comes down, if it suffers a failure or whatever and there's not a fire, I don't believe the soil will be as big an issue other than removing the footings and stuff like that. So, because that was the big problem there, was the fire that caused.
And they did, and once they got fiberglass down, nobody did anything, so they were farming it into the ground.
Well, yeah, and that was part of the fight.
They just went over, oaks and fields, so then they plow or disc or, prepare the soil and plant it and just sort of turn the ground over onto the fiberglass. That's the point of having it down and out in 30 days. Is to limit that, and then the people I talked to, this is what they do. They said they would send in 2 crews. They said they have one crew to lay the turbine down or pull the turbine down, and the other crew would start right away cleaning up, so depending on the size or whatever, with rakes, and then whatever they have to pull up of the soil. And but replacing that soil, that would fall on the as we'll discuss in another later, and that would fall on the developer.
So in the decommissioning, we do have, and Jared's right when he says that, we have it in there where they have to do an analysis of the farm up front. And so upon decommissioning, they return that to essentially the original, or similar standard of the original based on that assessment. But I guess and it's Charlie, right?
Yeah.
What Charlie's asking, and I don't know how this would happen, but we're not talking about an assessment of like a neighboring farm. Like we don't even have that. Like we wouldn't even have the ability to have a developer get that information necessarily from a non-participating farm.
Well, the CSR is not hard to come up with. Those records are already there, and that can be obtained from current records. Anything else, yes. The CSR value of the general land is something that can be obtained by anybody about their land in general. Those records
It's on your tax statement, isn't it? Or at least how many acres
it's also on the GIS website. It's also elsewhere.
So.
As a farmer, we're concerned about erosion and losing this topsoil. And it's not as deep as everybody would like to believe. It really isn't. There's spots I've seen on 85 farms, you dig a post hole, you're down a foot and a half, boom, you're into clay. This is a big problem. And then we are stewards of the soil, and we even have to farm certain ways where the government controls us. This is a very, very difficult problem, very difficult. And I see a lot of lawsuits in the future is gonna happen because of a lot of things that we talked about here in the last months. And the other one is, I'm gonna go back to it again, is the property line. If you have a property line and you have a lawsuit, there's gonna be we're gonna have the surveyors come out and say, that's your property line, this here happened over here. If we go to a man's house, we're gonna say, okay, was it the front door of the house? Was it the back door of the house? Was it the guy's yard? And here comes the lawyers. So why don't we make it easy on the people up there in Yarmouth and the Moines County people and go to the property line, and it's a wash.
Charlie, this is setbacks, we aren't at setbacks.
We're not in.
Exactly.
So
I'm getting
that
off,
would be
I'm getting
discussed.
off, I'm sorry to get off, but I just see a bunch of lawsuits.
Well, let's get to that when we get there and move on. We'll never get moved on if we don't, if we keep jumping around.
Yep. So we're right now we're focused on specifically on road use, and now that Ryan's here, we can make sure to. There was actually a section in there that.
We're good with the road use and.
Actually, there was one section here that I had actually accidentally skipped over here. But first, I just wanted to make sure Brian has had a chance to have any comments. So the section on the road use agreement submission requirements. So on page 38, there's the section that was added about the description of the communication process between the engineer and the developer. So did you have any thoughts on that before we? Because that was at your recommendation. Did you have any thoughts on that?
So rather than hold people up, how about I read it and you can keep on going?
Okay.
No,
That's fine.
Give you my comments.
Okay. So there were a couple of small changes here later in that road use section. One under financial security. That one it relates to a change that was also made under decommissioning, specifically that it's specifically referring to a bond, as the board had agreed to, not financial security more general, and also that the cost would cover no less than 150%, or it had originally been 300, and then I think we'd modified it to 125, but that's just for consistency between road use and decommissioning for the financial security. And then the last section for road use under notification of local officials for construction, this is page 39. So we clarified that under the list of individuals that would need to be contacted, in addition to fire departments that actually cover the area where the wind or solar farm is located, it must include any other fire departments with mutual aid. And then the same thing would apply to EMS ambulance, so that the service that they provide the service to that area, as well as any other ambulance services with mutual aid.
And I think they wanted to specifically add Muscatine as well, just due to some, and it was due to some specific resource they have for Muscatine Fire.
Did they not have a mutual aid agreement, or?
I don't believe they do.
I look into that, but I don't recall that being discussed specifically. But then the last thing here that was added was representatives of school districts that provide bus transportation. So that, again, just so that the school district is aware in advance of construction that there will be the heavy equipment coming in and out of there. So those were all added just to make sure that everyone with a clear stake and knowledge of that construction activity is notified. And then there's one more section here at the very end of road use, section I on page 40. Again, this was also recommended by the county engineer that there be some sort of a way of acknowledging that the activities have been completed and repairs have been made in accordance with what had been agreed upon as part of developing that plan. So it says that following the conclusion of the construction, repowering, or decommissioning activities, the county engineer shall inspect the condition of all roadways covered by the agreement, and then once those are determined to be in acceptable condition, under those terms, the engineer shall issue a certificate of completion attesting to the same. So this basically brings closure to that process and provides a way of ensuring both parties are in agreement on the conclusion of the the activities and the quality of the work performed. So that's all I have for road use. If anybody has any
I
comments
read
on
that
that?
earlier paragraph and it looked good.
Okay. So we'd already started talking about the wildlife monitoring, and I believe we had just concluded section B. So we're on page 42, moving on to section C, the review and approval of the plan. So it's the existing draft mentioned that the Conservation Board shall review the plan. And again, a lot of this was specifically recommended by Des Moines County Conservation, so this added language here. So it adds the caveat that there would also be that the Conservation Board would work in consultation with the Iowa DNR, Fish and Wildlife, and any other applicable conservation agencies. And so a couple of additional points that were added in there. One is that as part of its review of the plan, the board shall solicit comments from property owners within and surrounding the project area in order to evaluate whether additional strategies should be incorporated into the plan. And the board shall also submit a recommendation to the supervisors as to whether it should be approved and adopted. So specifically, I think we had discussed whether that be the plan itself be adopted by the board or whether that goes specifically through the supervisors. And we determined that the goal was to have it approved by the supervisors on recommendation.
We do have a question back there.
Yeah, Brad Coates. A couple of questions. I want to back it up just a little bit into wildlife, but before we got to that point, I had like 3 things I had questions on. But on B3, and it says demonstrable evidence that none of these things are going to have a direct or indirect negative impact on any wildlife, etc., that's protected. So, I guess does that mean that we will have no direct or indirect negative impact? I guess I don't understand this paragraph 3 that says they have to demonstrate evidence that none of this stuff is going to have a direct or indirect negative impact. And yet we had these conversations about take permits and all these types of things and all the stuff that's going to happen, which sounds somewhat direct and negative. So I'm just kind of curious on the language on that. What are we trying to say with B3? I'm just not following what we're trying to.
I believe because again, this was part of the language that was initially adopted with the Lee County ordinance. It's highlighted in the yellow, and so in researching this topic, we determined that we would want to include references to specific state and federal regulations regarding endangered species as just a way of acknowledging the intent of why we're carefully analyzing this development in terms of the wildlife impact that it would have. So it all works in conjunction with the specific requirements in this chapter with regards to the studies that are conducted and the analysis and feedback provided by the conservation entities. So the ultimate takeaway is that the whether it has a negative impact or not is based on whether there would be any noticeable impact from endangered species by virtue of the facility being developed, in which case there would need to be efforts taken to mitigate that. But ultimately that doesn't mean no impact at all. It just means that it's not going to have a noticeable impact on the species and the habitats within that area.
But I think if we go to just to B, that original paragraph, and take out the word substantial, so where it says demonstrate that the project will have, and then it says substantial negative impact on wildlife. I think we want to take out the word substantial and just say negative impact on wildlife. The problem we have with substantial is, does that mean they're going to go totally extinct? I mean, it's undefined. So I think we take out substantial.
Okay. Well, as long as the statements elsewhere in this section specifically identify what qualifies there, I think that would be fine.
So your point then is that the negative impact is more a national negative impact. In other words, there might be a negative impact on, you know, whatever, bat population here, it's a native bat here, or it's bald eagles here in the county, but within the United States, since we're going to U.S. Fish and Wildlife, then it's really not a negative impact, because if there's, I don't know, 5,000 bald eagles and we kill 10 here.
No, it would be specific to this area. I mean, the agency involved is a federal agency, but it would be based on specifically in Iowa. So
We can say in Des Moines County too. So that same clause, take out substantial, and a negative impact on wildlife, we could have in Des Moines County.
that could work, I think.
Rose?
Rose Fisher. So my question is then, who decides that? And how many are too many?
My understanding that they buy a permit. The developer buys a permit to so much kill, is that right, Jared?
Well, ultimately, so this is getting at something that we already had noted here later in this section under post-construction monitoring and mitigation, that there was a public comment submitted with concern about how we are actually monitoring that, because we had specifically added, so this is section D3 on page 43. It says that if the observed mortality rate exceeds 25% of the, and that's a typo there, meant to say predicted, not predicated. So in the mortality, or in the wildlife monitoring and mitigation plan, the owner and operator shall identify strategies for mitigating the problem. So I think one thing we will need to because that was specific language that was recommended by county conservation, and so I think we need to just make sure that it's clear how that predicted rate is evaluated in the first place. So I think there's maybe a spot for that somewhere in section B, because that's intended as a way to ensure that, like, at what threshold does it become an impact that could potentially seriously endanger that species in that particular area and its habitat.
So where in B is that, Jared? So, I mean, which sounds good. I'm just trying to find where in B that's.
Well, what I'm saying is, I think we need to add that in there somewhere, because I think that may have been overlooked in terms of a reference there, because that was the section D3 was specifically recommended by county conservation. So that is something we can look into specifically where that goes in terms of how we define that. So we will look into that.
So basically, if I understand then, so prior to any building, there will be a predicted rate. We'll do a study, we know what's here, there's a predicted mortality rate or whatever, negative impact rate. And then that is given to the board to say that predicted rate is okay? Is that the plan?
It would be in consultation with both county conservation and those other conservation agencies. Do you have any anything to add on that, Chris? Because I know that's.
Yeah, so
because there is a standard structure for how this is typically regulated, but
state and federal codes, do they define some of those terms?
I believe so, yes. So I would probably defer to those that have actually gone through this formal process before, because I never have, as to what hard numbers they set, or if there is hard numbers that are set. The idea behind D3 there was I wanted some sort of measurable metric that we could grab onto, that, you know, didn't just make it a judgment call of us as the conservation board sitting here and reviewing a plan, but looking at the plans and studies that they bring to us, and and then the actual recorded data from out in the field, I wanted some sort of number to grab onto. So if there's some sort of threshold that the U.S. Fish and Wildlife says this is expected mortality, what's the exceedance level? That, you know, is it one bird? Is it one bat? Is it 25%? And so I wanted some sort of tangible, measurable number. And that was why, and maybe it doesn't necessarily have to be 25%, but I wanted something in there that, you know, made it objective. And so we could debate that all along. Brad, you bring up a good point. on that number on B3 there. Demonstrable evidence that none of the components of the systems will have a direct or indirect negative impact. That's gonna be a pretty high threshold to meet. That none of the components will have any sort of negative impact. It may be worth looking into reading that, because it's almost guaranteed that there's going to be evidence that there will be some sort of negative impact. I don't, that's why you get into, that's why we have all this language about mitigation and stuff like that. And so that one, Trent, I would defer to you more as the legal advice on that. But does that bind us to where, we're saying you've got to show that there's evidence that none of the components are going to have any sort of impact, direct or indirect, on any wildlife species that are protected under Iowa Code or Federal Endangered Species Act or bald eagle. So if they show any sort of negative impact, does that automatically preclude them from getting this permit? And if it does, great.
So,
I mean, that's a pretty high threshold, but that kind of then negates the mitigation efforts of, okay, yes, we know there's going to be some negative impacts. Here's the mitigation efforts that we're going to do. So maybe this needs to be worded such that it's demonstrable evidence that the operation of these systems will not have direct or indirect negative impact, because then that allows for the mitigation measures that are talked about later on.
So, with all of this, especially, and even in the wildlife monitoring mitigation, it really is. I mean, we talk about these outside entities helping, and they really don't. So it really is. It falls on you, and the reality is we're really relying on this plan, and so this ordinance. Now, if there's any disagreement between a developer and you on what the plan should look like, we really, the county is in a much better position if the ordinance itself that's passed takes a stronger line, and then you can peel away from that and be like, okay, this is what would be allowed. You see what I'm saying? Where if we say in the ordinance, like, it's not gonna get any better for the county than it is in the ordinance. If we think that we're gonna be able to do that, especially in the wildlife sector, simply because when you look at where you would naturally wanna go, like US Fish and Wildlife, their kind of protocol is they have to show this economic mitigation, and it's a weird formula where they're really looking at the economic impact of the protection of the wildlife, where you don't have to do that. And so you don't have to get into all of this. So having stricter language in the ordinance allows you that if there's something and they say, okay, we want to talk about the bats, and we have 100 bats, and we say we're going to let you kill 25 of the, say, Indiana bat a year, or how do we want that language to look? Or is it 25% of the last 2 years worth of listening doesn't roll? Because if we're killing off 25% of the population, and that population, doesn't reestablish itself that quick, you might have 100 year one, 75 year two, 70 year three. You see what I'm saying?
Sure.
But all of those minute details, I believe it's your intention to put that into your plan that's approved by you and county conservation. So for this ordinance, the more strict the ordinance is, it's better. And if you peel away from that in your plan, that's gonna give you the authority and really the leeway to be able to do that.
I don't think you could put an absolute in there. It doesn't matter what you do, it's gonna have some
Sure.
impact. And if you put none, that's pretty cut and dry.
Just to clarify in terms of the 25% figure, I believe that's referring to 25% higher than the predicted rate. So we're not talking about 25% of an entire species. It's just specifically what the rate is.
Understood.
So just to make sure we're clear on that.
So I think for B3, I think if you just scratched none of the components of, you just took those words out of there, and it would say demonstrable evidence that the West CSS will not have a direct or indirect negative impact. Then allows for you to take into consideration the mitigation measures that they've got in their follow.
That makes sense.
Charlotte works.
Yeah, the Eagles got everybody's attention, we're gonna lose another 1 eagle or 10 eagles. And then we talk about bats like they're nothing. One little bat will eat half of its weight in insects in one night. And we have these windmills, some of them are like FAA, where they put their 80-some windmills on the proposed spots, are right in timbers, perfect spot for bats. And they come out and they're eating all these insects. Are we gonna be bombarded with a loss? How many can we lose? Can we lose 25%? Can we lose 50%? And there's no way to put a finger on this thing. And like I explained earlier, these windmills, as they spin around, there's vortices that's coming around that all of these flying mammals, and birds, bat is a mammal, anyway, they get flipped upside down and how many do they kill? In Las Vegas, they had a solar situation where they put a whole bunch of half-moon mirrors up to one point, and they never allowed the public in. After they went bankrupt, they went in and they said they took Michigan loaders every day and scooped up birds that flow through that area. And that's in the desert, there's not a whole lot of birds. But they took a Michigan loader every day. So all this turbulence and everything else, we talked about it, everybody knows about it.
Yes?
Cindy Newberry, I have a few questions. Does anyone know how many eagles or whatever in a permit they can take? Do we have a number? Or do we just say that it's a permit and they can take, how many eagles can they take? How many bats can they take?
That is something I wouldn't know. You would have to talk to the game and fishing.
I would have to talk to?
Because we don't know how many birds fly over here. Some of the literature I've got, there's 350,000 birds fly over Des Moines County.
Millions.
How do they know that? How many fish swim up and down this river? It's the same difference. So they've got figures on this, so they will tell the company when they apply for that permit, they will tell the company what their kill ratio should be. But we have no idea what it'll be.
I think we should know that.
Well.
And so if there's more than the permit, what happens? We don't know that either.
So there's the whole point of section D of this article is that there's a structure in place so that it's monitored after the facility becomes operational, and then the board must be, that's the county board as well as conservation, needs to be updated each of the 3 years following on how that's going in relation to what was planned, and if there are issues that come up, it sets a framework for what needs to be done in order to mitigate that issue, so that and basically until that gets resolved, then more efforts need to be done to ensure that it works, that it's not exceeding what what was predicted.
And I can tell you now that, public health has contacted somebody to look at after that for the county, and it will be paid for by the company that is going to put it up, and, to keep track on the kill and all that, to make sure, somebody said here last week or 2 weeks ago, what if they carry a shovel and start burying these
That was
things?
me.
Okay, was that you? Okay, but they have looked at it, so maybe we ought to put in there, no shovels allowed on the ground.
There you go. Also, basically, it's like a buffet. You know, if it kills a bird, what happens to a bird that's on the highway? Other things eat it, carry it away, it's gone. It's like a free buffet for, you know, like coyotes or whatever. There's no way that they can keep track of how many's killed. There's just, it's be nice if you could, but you can't. Plus, I was at a wind turbine, talking to some people last week, and there was a big tractor going around and around the wind turbine. And I was talking to the guy in the truck that was by the road, and he said that that turbine, or the tractor was mowing all the way around. It was really high grass. He was mowing around the turbine because someone was going to come in and count the fatalities. But after you mow with a huge mower, what do you count? It would, right?
I understand what
I
you're
mean,
saying.
I witnessed this. I have pictures. I'm like, seriously? He's mowing? And that would only be what's left after the coyotes and the whatever else had a dinner. I don't know. I don't understand. And this all sounds great. If you could keep track of that, it sounds great. But I just don't see, we're going to lose a lot of birds. And when you think how many turbines are in the state, and every single one of them gets to kill X amount of whatever, it's already out of control. Plus, we're in the flyway.
I mean, back to the ordinance, I mean, I agree with Jared in that the monitoring afterwards is good. I just wanna know if we're setting and reviewing, and then the conservation board, and then you all are looking at those numbers ahead of time to make sure that that's in everybody's mind acceptable. So I think you need to set, and to Trent's point specifically, you need to look at those ahead of time, and then monitor them afterwards, which is what Jared was saying. But I don't see the approval ahead of time stuff. That's what appears is not in there.
Yeah, so that's,
And that's what you're talking about adding in B, correct?
Right. Just to make sure that there's a follow through on that there's something in reference to there. So that seems like it should be a relatively simple, once we can confirm. Yeah, I think that's understandable. We can certainly make that adjustment to ensure that it's clear what that's in reference to.
So the other question I had on the ordinance, the other question I had was going on to C on number 5, under B, number 5, letter C, so page 42. When it talks about the public conservation areas and all that, and then looking at either U.S. Fish and Wildlife or DNR recommendations for just say setback distances, etc. Would not the conservation board also be in there? I mean, I would think the conservation board, and we talked about this a lot before, that the local is better, and that the conservation board should have the opportunity to also look at the public areas and determine what those setbacks for whatever reasons ought to be. And I don't see that in there on that one. And really with the and/or, you could talk to the DNR, or you could talk to U.S. Fish and Wildlife and not the other. But local, we had talked about wanting local in all these things, and it's not in that.
Well, again, that's a word choice thing. I think that was the intent, but I think the idea is that the county conservation board would be seeking guidance on that from the DNR and Fish and Wildlife, and they would ultimately be the ones making the decision as to what is a reasonable figure there. So that we can certainly modify that to make sure that that's clear that it's the conservation board that's ultimately processing that information and making the determination. So that's an easy edit there. All right, we already have examples elsewhere in this section that read the same way, so just making sure it all flows. We do, are we ready to move on, or?
Yeah.
Okay. So we've already touched a little bit on the post-construction monitoring and mitigation, but just referring specifically to what edits have been made since the last update to the ordinance. So this, there's a section here where it says that it's been added that the owner and operator shall submit an annual monitoring report to the Board of Supervisors and Conservation Board for each of the 3 years following post-construction. And then it shall include the following: the methods utilized for data collection. So that's important to be able to understand how they reach their determinations, listing of raw data and any observed trends, and then the analysis of avian and bat mortality rates. So just ensuring that it's clear what the county needs to see regarding that. And then that's when it comes in with the statement about if the rate exceeds 25% of the predicted rate in the plan, then the owner or operator shall identify strategies for mitigating the problem. And so we already had a list of strategies that may include, and we've, at the County Conservation's recommendation, we added a couple more. One being the implementation of deterrent technologies to prevent wildlife mortality, and then also temporary shutdowns of the equipment as necessary for certain times when there's peak activity that would need to be avoided. And then, go ahead.
So I think we want to take out where it says for the first 3 years and just have that be annually.
Well, I think that's pretty much the idea is that you monitor it for 3 years afterward, that's what you can expect to see through the lifespan. I mean, it's the practicality of doing it every single year for 30 years, that
I would think conditions would vary from year to year, and I'm comfortable with 3 years.
Yeah. Because if it, I mean, yeah, from year to year, that's why it's not just 1 year, it's 3 years, so that you factor in multiple conditions, weather.
Was either good or bad for that particular year. From a statistical point of view, I'm comfortable with the 3 years. I don't know about you guys.
I'm very comfortable with it.
Shane?
Yeah. I think that came from standard protocol for these. I think that's kind of standard. It's 3 years post-construction.
Alright, so
I mean, that's
two more items here that's just to close this section. One is that in the event that is necessary to implement those mitigation strategies, the results shall be identified in each subsequent annual monitoring report until such time as evidence shows that the rate has been reduced to levels consistent with those established in the plan. So that kind of gives, so if there is a situation where something is identified and it cannot be resolved within that 3-year period, then that puts the onus on them to be able to continue, keep at this until that can be resolved. And so that ensures that there's follow through on that. And then finally, just a generic statement here that says that all those monitoring reports shall be made available for viewing by the general public, in addition to the officials. So that's all I have for that particular chapter. I think they had maybe a couple of comments here. I think we've already touched on the comments that had previously been submitted. So if anybody has any comments on that, otherwise we could move on to the next article.
Move on. Yes, Rose.
Rose Fisher, could you back up to page 41 at the bottom under B? It says avoidance of developing within or in close proximity. How far is that? How's that decided?
That would be based on consultation from the local, state, and federal conservation agencies. So they've identified a specific area that is a known environmental site with a large bat population or eagle or whatever, that area is so sensitive that it needs to be avoided entirely in order to avoid major impacts.
Then that's gonna be dependent on species. If it's a bat versus an eagle versus a say a Mosasago rattlesnake, or it's gonna vary very much on the species. And so that's going to be, if a particular sensitive species is found, that's where consultation with those agencies is going to be, especially if it's an endangered species, there's going to be basically a restoration plan built around those, there's going to be best practices built around. So like with bats, there's the standing protocol of you don't cut trees in the summer. So every time I get one of those permits from Jared for a new subdivision or something, and I see it's along the Point Creek corridor, there's no comment of, if they're going to clear out an area for a house, I recommend not cutting trees in the summer because that's when bats are here and that's when you're going to have summer allocation of bats. Like Brian, who does a federal road project, can't waste down a bunch of trees and fly because there's the possibility of nesting bats there. But you can in December. So it's going to vary from species to species based on what that restoration plan or best practices are built around the known life history of that species.
So we don't know ahead of time what we have or how many. If we get a permit and we have a wildlife monitoring that says, yes, you have this many, and we anticipate we're gonna kill this many, and then you approve it.
Or not. I mean, in consultation with the agencies that understand the life histories of these and what their populations can and cannot handle.
So some is okay, we just have to decide how many.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there's no endeavor on Earth that has zero negative impact.
Every project I do goes to the same thing. I'll have to get a study done, they determine the percentage. They won't stop me from doing a project if there are bat habitat trees. It depends on how many trees there are, what the population in the area is, are there bats nested under the bridge? There's a lot of factors that go into it, but he's not wrong. There's literally no, in an area like this that has those kinds of populations, there's nothing you do. There's probably nothing you guys do on your private property that doesn't, that you don't think about that can have a negative impact. I mean, it's a true statement.
I mean, we have the same issue. The reason we know we have, when we studied the bat populations in the county is because that originated with the studies we had to do for the Big Hollow Lake. So when we went to put in that lake, we had to do pre-construction and post-construction monitoring on bats. We did nest net surveys, found out that we had bats, found out that the bat populations actually increased. And so we wanted to understand that dynamically there, and that's what got us studying, but we had to do mitigation for the impact we were going to have because we knew we were going to have some sort of negative impact because we took 178 acres of ground that we were going to put on the water, 90 acres of which was trees. That's bat habitat. So when the highway went through, they cut down all those trees to build the highway going up 61 right there where Stars Cape. They went and purchased additional acres to mitigate all that, planted a bunch of trees. The county is the recipient of some of those lands now, and so it's replacing, it's mitigation, it's replacing some of that in other areas away from the area. Well, is it better to just leave the habitat there and not have the impact in the first place? Yes, that's your first line of defense. But if the interest of developing the project, whether it's a highway, a wind farm, a recreational lake, is worth the mitigation effort, that's where the mitigation plan comes in. So that's all we're trying to do is strike the balance between setting some sort of metrics for, we know we're going to have an impact, what's the threshold of impact that we're okay with before we have to shut this down, and if there's a level of impact that we're okay with, what are the mitigation measures that we can put in place or ask to have put in place in order to mitigate that impact, because we know there's going to be an impact.
Which is done by every major project.
Yes.
So what's the cost then of that?
I reach out to a consulting firm, they do a study. I mean, to be honest with you, we try to avoid, we've left trees in place or we've waited until winter time. But there's the upfront cost as a consultant. I mean, normally my areas are pretty small, but it's not uncommon. It could be 5,000.
Okay.
I mean, that's a smaller cost. I mean, there's areas that'd be a lot more than that. I'm sure Big Hollow spent a lot more than that.
Okay.
I just,
Jared.
I
One more
keep
question.
Charlie Tomkinson, if we guess this wrong, and we wake up and all the bats are gone in Des Moines County, no more eagles, because some experts told us that, yeah, we're gonna lose 5, we're gonna lose 10. This is a big decision, guys.
Well, I think, cause if it is cost prohibitive to do it, I get what you're saying, just the first 3 years, but do we wanna go back? Because we're talking about projects with lifespans maybe up to 50 years. So we wanna go back maybe every 5 years, every 10 years, and have another study.
I like 3 years rather than looking what happens this year, what happens next year, the year after that. If you look at a 3-year span, you say statistically this year's an aberration. They're either high or they're low or something like that. But over the 3 years, it's not. Just as statistically speaking, I personally prefer the 3 years. You don't have as much static in a statistic.
Right, but I mean, but if it changes the way it functions over time, I mean, I get what you're saying as far as
Okay, but
the initial.
you're not advocating.
Right.
Well, like if they came in and enlarged the facility, added more turbines over time, that would be another permit process for that expansion. So then there'd be another opportunity for evaluation at that time.
I think the board's already said we're comfortable with all three of us.
Well, yeah, but that's just a particular project at a particular time is 3 years. I agree.
Okay, moving on.
Okay, so Article, let's see, 12 on page 44 is emergency response. Similar to the previous chapter, in this case it's Shannon Prado with emergency management had reviewed this chapter and provided a list of recommendations, and we also accommodated some of the concerns and comments that were obtained from emergency response fire departments that were at I believe that was the July 22nd work session. So pretty much everything you see here that's a change is related to comments at that work session or directly from county emergency management. So under section B on page 44, it's referring to the submission requirements, what information needs to be provided in an emergency response plan. The list already includes a list of types of incidents ranging from weather, security breach, fire explosion, or any kind of medical emergency involving personnel on the site. So the modifications are, it now says at minimum, just so that it's not an all-inclusive statement, that this, at bare minimum, it must include the following, but if any other issue is brought up that's deemed relevant, that can be accommodated as well. But what's been added is for environmental chemical issues, it specifically references hazmat incidents now, and then we also added a reference to ice throw and accumulation of ice on a turbine blade if that were to become an issue. And then further down in that section B, there's some additional conditions added. Number 4 is that the plan shall demonstrate that the emergency contact for the operator will be able to readily coordinate the immediate deployment of personnel to the site once an emergency is reported. That was based on some concerns about will they have anybody available on site or people close by that can readily access it. The number 5 then says that the plan shall address the roles and responsibilities.
Jared,
yeah.
Can I back you up just
Go
a
ahead.
minute? Okay, we're on emergency response for B. Go up to B1.
Okay.
the emergency response plan shall address, and you've added at minimum all of the following emergency incidents. I don't like that wording, there's some Trump would know better than I do. If you have a list, it excludes everything that isn't on a list. So you have at a minimum, I would prefer that it said the emergency response plan shall address all of the shall include, but not limited to the following. So that, if you go put a list up there, something will happen that nobody thought about.
Right, yeah.
And anyway, so if you could just put shall address.
That's,
I think that was the intent of that.
Yeah.
You can change the
wording,
of it.
yeah.
Just including but not limited to.
Yep, that's fine. Okay, we're ready to move on to the next item. Okay, so number 5, the plan shall address the roles and responsibilities of local emergency response professionals in relation to the operator's own personnel during an emergency event, and shall also demonstrate that the operator's personnel will have sufficient training to safely and effectively exercise the responsibilities delegated to them by the plan. So this was based on some discussion that involved an expert that the wind company had included on that work session, where there was a statement about how and this may vary depending on who's operating the particular wind or solar farm, but that in their particular case, it would be they don't want the local emergency response personnel getting right up and climbing up onto the tower or whatever, or they would bring their resources in and be available on site, but their policy would be to have the personnel of the facility tending to those specific issues in the event of an emergency. So this statement basically makes it clear that since that may vary from one company to another, that we need to be clear ahead of time what that's going to be. So when you got people showing up to the site from the company, from local emergency response, that people know what everyone's responsibility is and that they're all prepared to handle that incident in advance. And then the final statement in that section is that our emergency response plan, specifically for a wind farm, this is the only time this would specifically apply, is that it would include the designation of landing zones for medevac aircraft within the vicinity. So this was requested specifically by a local emergency response that it needs to be clear where that can be nearby. So, nobody has any other comments? That's all I have for that particular section B. Okay, we have a comment.
Good.
Yeah, Niall Shade. I've got a question on the part 5 there. This is all well and good about the responsibilities in the emergency response. Is there any kind of time frame in there? I mean, because that's pretty nebulous, the emergency response. It could be a day, it could be 2 days, but I think people that have a genuine emergency want something within hours. So I'm just saying that probably needs addressed in there in a specific time frame.
Are you referring to number 4 actually about deployment of personnel to the site? Is that, or are you talking about number 5?
Well, I'm sorry, it was 4. It starts with 4.
No.
I think that you put it in one of them, time frame or that response time.
Makes sense.
Did we have something in there that the company is going to train the emergency response teams, through the fire department? That we talked over that somewhere in this, and if my recollection is right, I think we did that. We were going to do that prior to operation, train these people at their own expense.
I know that topic is addressed in here.
Yeah.
Well, what they said was they're gonna provide training, but essentially the training was stay away and let our people handle it.
Well,
That's what they sat here and said. That every one of the people we have on site will be trained to handle this, and it's more of a risk for local emergency response people to be there up close than for them to. That's how I recall that.
Well, it does, later, it's already in the yellow part for section B, under 8 and 9, it says that the plan shall accommodate specialized training for fire departments and other response professionals offered on an annual basis, and then for the acquisition of specialized equipment, and then number 9 refers to the providing an annual on-site tour for emergency response professionals to ensure awareness, so that whether or not the company has a certain policy about how close the emergency response people can get to the equipment in the event of an emergency, there's still that provision and awareness that there needs to be what the fire departments and EMA actually would be doing in that event as needed. If we comment from the reporter here, Tracy.
Yeah, I got a couple of questions. Tracy Lamb, the Hawkeye, about that specifically. So does that, maybe Jared, you know, or Evie, it looks like she's on the chat there. Will the company then have emergency response personnel that they employ here? Or are they gonna be wherever their closest base of operations is to here? If you have if their emergency response is what Brian says is if their training plan is what Brian says is that stay away and leave our people to do it, how fast can they respond unless they have someone under their employ right here all the time?
That was the context of that day's conversation, was they would have employees here.
Okay.
They're gonna have, what, 2 to 3 employees, full-time employees.
Okay.
But there was also discussion about like having the fire department there, having the water supply ready, or whatever they need to do to back up that because they would rely on local EMA and fire for that support.
Well, and you have to also remember, we're continuing to talk about wind, but this policy is meant to address all different things, and you're right to a certain point that there's probably still is training needed, because there's not necessarily somebody sitting in a solar field. I don't think perhaps the same way there is at wind or battery storage or whatever, so all these apply, and the timing that they can be there, and it may be such a thing that emergency response, I'm only speaking to what was said here about the wind side of it, but the emergency response folks very well might be able to provide services on a solar field or a battery response and be trained to do that because of nobody being close by.
Yeah, so second thing while I got your attention, what is your plan for making this draft? It's now been presented in public, so what is your plan for making this draft available for people who aren't here to view? Is there one? Are you gonna put it on your website or?
Well, the initial plan was to go through chapter by chapter, solicit comments, get a list of needed edits or items for further research, and then once we get through that chapter by chapter review, we come up with a make all the edits needed, and then come back to the board with that latest draft to see if there are any additional comments. And that's kind of what we're getting at here, as was requested by the public to address some of these changes. But ultimately, all such changes will be included in a document that is made available to the public.
But I think the request of the public is to see what you've done to this point, and I think that means all the public and not just the public that is here today.
It will be made available.
How?
It was published on the agenda when I posted it 2 weeks ago.
But with the edits or just?
Yeah, the edits that they made up to date were up, everything has been, what they're going off of right now.
So they can go to
the website.
To the website and it will be
in the
on.
packet from that board meeting day.
Okay.
I'm Rose Fisher. I'd just like to comment that the draft that's been passed out is one that has notes on it all along the side, which is not what we get when we get it from the agenda.
Correct, that's Jared's notes that he has put on there when he is drafting it to make sure he adjusts everything on here correctly. So those are ones that we just had, so that's what Brian had, that's why he made a copy of that.
And that's all I had, so that's what I copied.
Shouldn't we have that? So he passed that out though to other people.
Excuse me, I apologize for my age.
Those sidebar comments are all just an explanation of the changes for the benefit of the board to understand the context of those changes. So it does not involve anything else that's not content.
I get that. But when you present something like this at a public meeting, those sidebar comments become available to the public. It would be no different than Jim and Tom deciding to pass a note right now. You all would have it would be within your rights to go up to that board and say, I want to see what's on that note. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. I think that's the point.
Right.
So now that I've said enough, I got a deadline to meet and I'm gonna leave. So
Do you want a copy of it? Is that what you're asking?
yeah, I would like a copy.
Here,
Do you have time?
I
I'll
do.
run a copy of it.
I think I might have
Fantastic.
another copy here I could give her
If you don't, I'll go run a copy.
on 9/5.
Well, I think you can just email them. I mean,
Yeah, just email something to us.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's
She's
not a
leaving.
problem.
Well, and I could,
That's fine.
but I would like the copy if you got it. So I'm sorry.
I printed a copy off at home.
Fantastic.
I
Thank you.
that's the only way I'm gonna do it. So you want to email that?
Yeah, that'd be, oh, I
You
can
did,
give
you
you
did.
this.
You
Yeah.
did, okay.
Yeah, so thanks everybody. See ya.
This one you here?
You wanna wait till Tom returns? Or?
No, go ahead.
Alright, so let's see where we were at here. I think
Five,
we,
I think.
what was that?
It was the top of page 45.
Gonna cut into my pie and ice cream time here after bed.
Last night, Heather made apple crisp, so I had
Okay,
apple
so
crisp.
just a small change to 7C on page 45. All that really is just, it previously said fire department personnel, so that by broadening it to emergency response personnel, then it's clear that it covers EMA as well. So that was the only change there. Now the section C at the bottom of the page is the review and approval of the plan. So let's see, it previously said that the plan shall be reviewed and formally adopted by the following. And this was changed to ensure that a person other than the board would not be the one who would not have the opportunity to obstruct the process and for whatever reason, so that it's ultimately the board that would approve that, but it would be submitted for review by all of those entities as they have a direct stake in that process. And so it already listed the EMA and the fire departments directly serving the project area, but it's been expanded so that any other fire departments with mutual aid would be addressed there, along with the EMS ambulance service as well.
Because didn't we require that it was signed off by all of the EMS?
Right.
As well as the,
Yep.
plant?
Mhm.
Okay, that's fine.
Yep, and then also I think someone had mentioned the sheriff's department too, so that was included just so they're aware of that and as needed, they would need to be involved potentially. And then the next section that was added, the developer shall provide documentation to the board confirming that these entities have had all the opportunity to review and adopt. So that's basically what you were getting to there, that they've all been okay with it. And then finally, the owner or operator shall submit the plan to those entities for review and readoption on an annual basis. And would need to make any necessary modifications prior to readoption. And then, so the last section of Article 12 is the response to damaged property. So the rest is just the plan itself for dealing with emergencies. This one is specifically how do you respond to an incident. So there was a question that had been submitted about the addition of the word reasonably under section D, where it says the owner or operator shall be responsible for all costs reasonably associated with repair. And then we also added the word repowering just to be more all-encompassing there. But specifically, reasonably have been been recommended upon review by the county emergency management out of concerns that and she can explain this if need be, but basically that there are incidents where an emergency happens, there's an impact, and there are some cases where someone might try to exploit that situation and claim that damage was the result of an event when in fact it was already that way before, like if there was hail damage on a garage or something. So the intention, and we can modify the language however you'd like, but the idea is that it's not interpreted so broadly that anyone's claim that it's related to that particular emergency, it's not just taken at face value if it's something that the board feels is not appropriate for that.
Read that again.
So in response to damaged property, the owner and or operator shall be responsible for all costs reasonably associated with repair, reactivation, repowering, and decommissioning. So it has to be something that's directly involved with fixing damage that has occurred because of the event. Ready to move on? Okay.
Yeah.
So there's another way to word that.
I think we want to say, instead of reasonably, I think approximately caused.
Yes, Robert.
Because reasonably is just not a legal term.
Right, yeah, I get what you're saying, and I think Shannon said too that that's the, yeah. Whatever the intent is.
That was what my comment was gonna be, is the reasonably, because if something would happen, ice throw or something on my property, I shouldn't have to walk through fire to try to say that it was the ice throw off the blade, or, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
What was the term you used again?
Approximately caused, and that would be if it would go to court, they'd have to prove approximate, that'd be the approximate cost.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
So the subsection 1 there, it says, if the emergency event results in conditions that present an imminent danger to the public, then the owner and or operator shall mitigate all such danger within 30 days through the removal and or disassembling of the components. And then the conditions would be include, but are not limited to, as an example of using that phrase. It already lists that major components at risk of damage or collapse that would need to be taken care of. Also, oil and chemicals leaking from the equipment, exposed electrical wires or circuits that could cause fire, and then an area of scattered debris with glass, fiberglass, or similar materials. And then there's another statement here that says all components and materials that were collected or disassembled in order to restore public safety shall be removed within 365 days, and any such materials that are not immediately removed shall be temporarily stored on a participating property in a manner that is fully secure and protected from dispersal or further exposure to the general public. So I know there was maybe some disagreement on there was a lengthy discussion about this at the previous work session on emergency response, so we may need to modify that if there's not agreement on what we're getting at here. But basically, as currently written, it says that if anything that's structurally damaged to the point that it could fall over or
Structurally
spread,
damaged.
that it
I
would
don't
need
think you want to limit it to that.
Right. That it would need to be mitigated within 30 days. But if once say it's a turbine that's damaged, have the tower taken down as currently written, that would mean that they would have up to 365 days to have it hauled away. So if the board feels differently about that would need to actually be.
I think we know they feel different about that.
Yeah,
I think we need to clarify that.
We want it, if it happens on the 1st, we want it down and out by the 31st.
Okay, yeah.
30 days to get it down and out. And that's for, like the turbine, that does not include, we talked the foundation or something like that, but that.
Right.
Yeah, I think we need to clarify the.
There was a lot of discussion about that.
Whether it's solar battery, we maybe need, but it's basically what's above ground.
Yeah, whatever's above ground
goes
is gone in 30 days.
Right. So, can modify that accordingly. There is a reference to damaged or contaminated, and under number 3, there was some concerns about contamination not being specifically addressed. So basically the same requirements would apply regardless of whether it's something that's physically damaged or if it is contaminated by some sort of chemical or whatever material on the property. And
a quick question on that.
Yeah, Brad.
Brad Coates. So yeah, on that number 3, I'm just going through the scenario a little bit, and we talked to the folks like up in Osceola County, and a lot of debris on a neighboring field. If there's 300, if that's, because I'm right across from this, if that's on my field and it happens in March, am I out of season of planting now? So I got whatever it is, 10 acres or something sitting there that's contaminated with debris. And to your comment, Tom, do I go ahead and work it in and plant it, just waiting for them to come, or am I out for 365, or does this address my loss for that year?
I think that's how, and that's why I wanted to put in approximate cost, because it's gonna be super fact specific. And the courts work approximate cost all the time, and it's, and it may be that, yes, March, and you're not able to get in there and remove the fiberglass, I guess. This is something I'm not real familiar with, but be able to remove the fiberglass in time, and if you go in and disc or plow, even worse, right? And now you have this contaminant, deeply inside the soil, where it may be that they're like, hey, your mitigation is don't plant, and then your part of the damages you would receive would be the revenue you lost for not planning for that season. But it's got to be really fact specific.
So that approximate
that would cover the damages, the loss of his income or loss of his crop.
Right, because that's approximately the cost.
The people I talked to about they said they were familiar with that, and they said they would send out 2 crews. They said they could very possibly have it cleaned up in 2 weeks. They said they go out and they said one crew starts taking down the turbine, the other crew starts cleaning up, and so yeah. But if it would happen to be set just right exactly about the time you were going to plant or something like that, that would be covered.
And the reason I asked the supervisor, the supervisor we talked to up in Osceola County, and we talked to him up there, and he was saying, every time the guy comes through now, and he said they came out, they picked up stuff, and the county crew came out and all this, and even then when he comes through and farms it, he's still turning up white. So that's the only reason I asked the question, is from his comment from there.
Understood.
Okay, Jared.
Always a couple of minor edits here at the last sections 5 and 6 here. There was an added reference to repowering, just to be consistent throughout here. And I think number 5A, it previously used the phrase restoration and removal process. So it's modified, so this is in any applicable instance where decommissioning where it has not commenced within 365 days, the county may initiate the process. That's the minor wording change. And then the last section 6 here, there was an added reference to long-term weather conditions as a likely factor that would be involved in any instance where removal or restoration couldn't be completed. So that's all I have for that section. So we have one more.
Well, can I ask one last one on that? Brad Coates, last question on that section, and we brought up a bunch, and I just want to. I'm not a lawyer. Is it covered in that approximate cost thing again? We talked a lot about if contaminants leave my property and enter the creek and all that kind of stuff, and like up in Mechanicsville or whatever, the DNR was coming back after the non-participating. Does this relieve me of that liability of contaminants leaving my property and heading into the stream? Because we've talked about
that happened because I made a note. and this might be under, emergency response, I, obviously like an idiot, I wrote it down at home and didn't bring that. But anyway, you've got here, probably need to go back to emergency response. Board agreed that, DNR needs to certify that the site, it's on that, you handed this out. I
Yeah,
think everybody got
it's
copies of
referencing
it that went over
decommissioning.
that topics to discuss. If you go back here to emergency response where it said that, it says the property, crap.
What page are you?
And I'm looking for it, I'm gonna have Gerald find it for me.
Well, it's addressed under decommissioning
yeah,
about,
Where it says that it's agreed that the turbine company should be responsible for all penalties and associated with environmental cleanup. I would like to see it says specifically for all environmental damages and penalties, the cleanup. All the costs below to them, if Brad gets fined $1,000, they're gonna pay that, and if the cleanup, the environmental cleanup.
that was just one where we weren't, without further research into how that is specifically addressed by DNR, there was concern of putting it in, I mean, I understand that makes sense, we want to require that, but it was just wanting to make sure that we weren't putting in something that could potentially conflict with DNR regulations. But that was an item that we just hadn't looked.
We want to conflict with DNR. That's our goal.
I just want to be clear, you know, that whatever the DNR requirements, if it requires that Brad pays $1,000, I want whoever the developer would be to write a check for $1,000 to Brad, or give him a check to the, you know, but it doesn't come out of Brad's pocket.
Right, I understand it, that was just, we hadn't looked into that yet, but I can.
So where will that
I
be
think that's
inserted?
generally, and maybe I'm wrong because I'm not an attorney, but that's in the deed response to damage. I mean, the first paragraph, I think that's the intent.
And I
don't know if that's clear, you can use that as a legal case, that's not my expertise. It's on page 46. It's in any instance where emergency, and it's specific to emergency events, so maybe it needs to be somewhere else too and expanded, but it's, the operator shall be responsible for all costs, and then it goes back to the tank takeout reasonably associated with the repair, reactivation, and or decommissioning of the components.
I just wanted to be clear because that was one of the problems when Brian and I were in
non-participating
Mechanicsville,
properties.
which is the DNR said.
I think Tom's right after going to Mechanicsville and hearing, and I will say, neither one of us, I think, researched the DNR, but we listened to the landowners and what they were told by DNR. I think it needs to address the environmental side of it very clearly and those costs very clearly. I don't think we're clear enough in this.
That's what the board wants, we can certainly find a place for it, so. It's the.
Work for you, Jim.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Well, so we have one more section here, actually we had solar that had been at a previous work session too, but I think the initial intent was to at least get through these last 4 chapters. They're somewhat related, so we can start and see where we get here. But so under decommissioning, so we're on page 48, decommissioning standards. So there's an added caveat here that when the decommissioning shall comply with the following minimum standards. It now says, regardless of whether this occurs at the planned end of life decommissioning or as a result of abandonment or damage from emergency. So basically now it's, because we initially started talking only about the initial or the planned decommissioning. Now it's clear that covers everything. So these standards would apply whether the developer had planned to do it that way, or if it's just taking out an individual turbine that was damaged and not replacing it, or solar or whatever. So the first statement here, we had some discussion about the underground components that had been modified. So now it states that all such structures shall be removed, including the entirety of those below ground level. It had previously been the idea of having it limited to 5 feet based on precedent from other communities, but it was agreed by the board that they want, that the board wants that standard in there in place, but it provides the option for a waiver from the property owner as on a case-by-case basis. So it says that complete underground removal may be waived.
We had that in the original one, the
Right.
removal there, and I thought that, when I read that, you said, give it to the landowner at the time, you know, that it comes out, but if he wants to make a waiver, rather than I give him a waiver now.
Yeah, because if it's a different owner 30, 40 years in the future.
And I made the decision for him.
Because we talked about whether it gets recorded or not, and that was specifically because it may be needed for if the future owner thought differently that way that it was on record from 30 years earlier. So if we're giving that right specifically to the owner at the time of decommissioning, then that would eliminate the need for having it recorded, because it's an ongoing process as opposed to just
figure taking it out like we said originally, but if the owner at the time wants to waive it, he can.
That's correct. Yep.
Road.
Just to clarify, so if they waive it, then it's not recordable?
So what they're saying is that it could be waived at the end. So say, owner of Greenacre says they want to have BES. And to put in the BES, they have to put in concrete that goes down 8 feet, or say pillars that go down 20 feet. And the county's only going to require 5 feet of clearance if they sign the waiver. What we're saying, and the reason they're saying it doesn't need to be recorded, is that's waived at the time of decommissioning. So instead of having an impediment on land that needs to be recorded, that's not the case, because that waiver's not going to be signed until the very end.
I think I can make it easier for you, Rose. Right now, to begin on, from the last ordinance, this requires you to, if you put it in the ground, you take it out. That's part of the decommissioning, you take it all out. That doesn't change. At the end of it, 20, 40, 50, or whenever it might be, that they're gonna decommission that, whoever is the owner of that land at that time says, yep, go ahead and take it out, or no, I'll give you a waiver, I'd like to keep it, or you don't have to take it down 5 feet, or whether they give them some money for that waiver, or whether the owner, for whatever reason, the owner can waive that requirement at that time. But as everything starts out, it comes out of the ground. It's the way it reads now.
I understand that part, but I'm just saying, if they choose to leave it in, then there's no documentation anywhere?
The owner, all the owner has to do is say, take it out.
Okay.
And if they would have, the owner would have to choose and say, you know, we only expect you to take out 4 foot or whatever you're gonna do, or what will you pay for me? What will you pay me to leave it there? That'll be for the owner at that time, whether it's the same individual or a different individual, will be the owner at that time.
So as a technical construct at the time of sale, that would be something that is supposed to be, it should be part of the disclosure of this at the time of sale, but that's not something that would typically be recorded. So just like as if you're buying a house, and say the foundation leaks, that's part of the disclosures that you're supposed to put down. Now, if a disclosure isn't made at the time of sale, it gets really wonky. But that's not something that would typically be recorded.
Okay.
If it was waived, say the owner of Greenacre today in 2025 signed a lease with developer X, and they want to make that an impediment, that lease should be filed as an impediment. Because if not, the owner of Greenacre could sell Greenacre and there's no privity contract between developer A and the new owner, what lease? There is no lease, right?
Right.
So they should be filing that lease, and then, I can't imagine they wouldn't, but I don't know. But then if somebody signs a waiver saying, hey, you're not gonna have to take this out, we wanted to have that waiver, that property interest be recorded, so that way it's known, so as one property owner sells it to the other. But, yeah.
Patty Jo Overman, I have a question, and that so too pertains to a passage of land as well?
Well, a transfer, so you're saying if somebody dies?
Yeah, my dad dies, because I'm not an owner, landowner currently, but, you know, sooner than later, I will be. But it won't be a sale.
Right, well, it's a transfer of land. I mean, a transfer is a transfer.
Right, I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay, Jared?
Okay, so the next section here, number 2 and 3, there are previous, there's a previous statement about the satisfaction of the Board of Supervisors, which we had removed for being too arbitrary.
And I apologize, I can't think and turn pages at the same time. Which page on there?
We're on 48.
48, okay.
Section B. So there were a couple of statements in there for 2 and 3 that left the standard up to the satisfaction of the Board of Supervisors, which was based on it was originally in the ordinance, and that was determined to be too vague and up to interpretation. So that was removed for being too arbitrary. Now section 3 says that all structural components removed shall be recycled. So this was moved around. First it says the materials comprising these components shall be, and so it's now it just says all structural components. So it's not referring to what makes them up, but just entirely. So it's broader. And then number 4, we had touched on this topic a little bit earlier, but it's so all areas of soil that have been disturbed to construct and operate the facility shall be graded, reseeded, and otherwise restored to condition prior to the development. So we added, with the corn suitability rating value being no less than 95% of the pre-construction CSR value for the same location. So this basically just ensures that once it's restored, that it needs to be consistent with the existing conditions there. And once again, there is that opportunity for the waiver for the participating property owner in that particular case. So that's we start out with the base requirement that it needs to be to that standard, but it's ultimately up to the property owner to waive that if they so choose.
And is that applicable to Mr. Tonkinson brought up, or that if it damaged, if it suffers damage and you had to remove the topsoil from a neighboring property,
right?
That it gets
well, it specifically says refers
restored to the condition.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, does this apply that, or did we put that in? We talked about this during emergency response, and
well, yes. So actually, I see what you mean. So under the opening paragraph of section B, there's the added statement we had about regardless of whether the decommissioning occurs at the end of the operational lifespan or as a result of abandonment from emergency.
Okay,
so
okay.
Whatever stage in the process, that applies.
Perfect.
Yep. Okay, so next on section 5, another accommodation here. So the deconstruction activities shall not exceed 365 days. The board may extend this deadline in any instance where removal of large equipment cannot be completed within that time frame due to long-term weather conditions. So just just a general disclaimer there that ordinarily that would need to be done within that time frame, but there is a reference to that if need be. Section C, for the most part, no changes there. We just there was just a statement that was removed from C4 where it says documentation of existing conditions prior to the establishment of the wind, solar, or battery facility, where it's originally included with for the county to use as a baseline in determining whether it has been restored to pre-development condition. I believe Trent had specifically recommended that that be removed just because it's unnecessary that that it's already clear what that is for. So next under section D, now we're on page 50. Another reference was added under D2 that refers to the restoration of the soil to pre-development value. So just echoing back to that previous section. And then there's also a statement here about the cost of providing liability insurance coverage to the county. Again, that it removed the statement about acceptable to the Board of Supervisors. That would be too vague for that.
Can we put in a?
I know that particular item about liability insurance, we were still assessing that, so.
And I haven't got an answer for it yet, I haven't. But something like all risk general liability, I think is the most comprehensive policy. You might want to put something in there. I will reach out again to somebody in the insurance business and find out what the name of that particular type is.
And I know that
general liability, I'm sure.
However that gets updated, our intent is to include a statement in there that it must include environmental as well. Is that consistent with what Chris had recommended? So section E on financial security, that's pretty much all related to whether we consider it a bond or another form of financial security. I think the board was in agreement that it be specified to just bond there. So that's whenever that's highlighted, that's why. And the same thing that the amount has been modified several times, but the latest guidance from the board was that 150 was what you wanted to see. I think we had 125 before.
We had 3 times.
That
was what it was originally.
Everybody went down, so we wanted 1.5 times.
And so under section F.
That one a lot. Actually, it was higher than that.
So section F, confirmation of decommissioning. Again, referencing back to the soil thing, we added at the end after ground level photographs, also descriptions of soil characteristics and documentation of CSR, both prior to initial development and after decommissioning. So just a way to confirm that has been complied with. And it also, number 2, it said if the supplied documentation does not meet the minimum standards of the ordinance, the county may conduct. I think the consensus was that that caveat at the beginning doesn't need to be there, that the intent is that the county would do that anyway, so it just gives the county the right to do that. And then the only other highlighted item at the very end of section G was the reference to the surety bond, which we'd already discussed specifically to a surety bond, not another form of security. So I think there may have been one or 2 comments that we didn't address here. There was a comment about a matrix table listing the timelines for decommissioning and whether this occurs as a result of planned deconstruction or a damaging event. I recall that discussion there. There was the intent is to once the latest draft of the full ordinance is complete, once we've gone through chapter by chapter, then we would include a matrix table for that, just to make sure that it's still accurate if any other changes have been made, and that would be made available at the time that draft is submitted. My interpretation of that is that this matrix wouldn't necessarily go into the ordinance itself, but it would be for just and as the board is reviewing this, just to visualize what all that looks like together. I'm fine either way, but the intention was that eventually
I don't think it needs to be part of the ordinance. It was Mr. Coach that requested that, and I agree with him. It's when it says 90 days here, 30 days here, and 365 days there. It's really, really tough to get your head around that. But if there's something that, it doesn't need to be part of the ordinance, but
and we've discussed a couple aspects of that today. So now that we're clear on that, once the next draft, once we get through the chapter by chapter, the next draft that comes out, we can submit that as well.
Okay.
Okay. Now, next week, we were going to go over, setbacks, but we're pushing that back to October the
Right.
7th. So we're not gonna have that
We,
October the 7th.
that works for me.
Does that mean like nothing next week then at all, or are you gonna do anything?
I mean, specifically, it'd be the wind energy system siting design standard section, which includes the setbacks, but.
Yeah, what?
We
don't want setbacks.
So what would we do? What
No,
would we
on
do?
the 7th, I mean.
On the 7th, so what would be, what's on the 30th?
So the question is, do we do anything next week, or we can do the
When I talked to you yesterday, you said there
permitting
were some small
section?
things.
Right.
Or we could do, like, yeah, there's a couple little things we hadn't done yet.
We need
Definitions, general provisions.
And then there was that chapter about communications and enforcement, which was mentioned.
Completely new.
Yeah.
Let's
go over that next week.
So if you want, we can do those general provision definitions and then the.
I learned a little bit of each one of these.
Yeah. We're definitely gonna push the setbacks until the October the 7th.
Right.
Need more time to get my head around that stuff.
The Article 1, 2, and 9.
Charles.
We could add 13 as well, because there's just one minor change in there.
Charles Tompkinson.
Yeah.
South Yarmouth. I feel like a congressman, I just got this 1,000-page.
Congratulations.
We got a vote on tomorrow.
Yeah, that's kind of like covering 4 chapters in one day. I'm like, whoa.
I have a question about the height. Do we have a definite answer on the height of the tower and the blade? And the other one is, are we still gonna have one permit for one turbine at $5,000 a shot? Or are we gonna give this company $400,000 bonus to come here with their 80 turbines? What are we gonna do on those two questions?
I don't think we're at all interested in having a permit for every turbine.
No.
Or for every parcel or anything like that. It's my understanding that we will have one. It took 2 or 3 meetings for me to get my head around, because we're talking about different types of permits. But anyway, there will be one for an installation. If there's a wind installation or solar installation, that would take, if another one came along, that would be a different permit. But just one permit per installation, is that right, Jerry? Right.
That's how it's.
Before I put my foot
That
in
would
my
be
mouth.
the intent
Yes,
as
yes.
it is now, yeah. But we haven't technically gone through that section yet, so.
I'm sorry?
Well, we haven't reviewed that section.
We haven't gone
yet,
through
so
that
we'll
yet.
go through it.
You're still working on that, okay? And the
It's
height-
in there as is, we just
Anybody
haven't
have a
reviewed it.
on the height?
The only thing I've got
That
on
would
my,
be part of the
Iowa,
siting and permitting.
Iowa give them,
750 feet.
no, Iowa give them, up to 750 foot, but according to Evie Sorrell, I talked to her and the company's planning on 650 footer.
But this isn't,
Yeah, so that would be
This isn't about-
100 feet of safety then for the FAA. If that's the case, that seems to be right.
It's what?
Yeah, that would give a 100-foot safety section. If the FAA moved it to 750 and you're only 650, you'd have a 100-foot safety area.
Cindy Newberry, and that's just what Edie said, and we need to put it in for all the possibilities. You see what
I see where you're coming from. Maximum, so you can say maximum height 650 foot.
Yeah. Yep. Or less.
400?
There are though.
Yeah, well,
Again, that's a topic for, you know.
That would be October 7th.
Another day.
thank you, whoops,
One more question.
one more.
So before I download this.
Three
whole
for a
thing-
quarter, you've already got 3.
I owe you. So when will the new draft be updated so we can download it before the next one and everyone that's not here will know?
You know, ready this afternoon, Jared?
So, to clarify, are we talking,
I think he was joking.
I'm sorry, I apologize.
Penny count.
the section with the notes on it, if that's, it was requested, I can have that available this afternoon, but
I think Sarah's gonna throw that on the website.
I think,
yeah.
and I think you're talking about something where this would be incorporated with
Like
what we
today's.
talked about it, so that they could read the ordinance and not reading a note on the side, trying to figure out where it came from.
The intent was that we wouldn't come out with another version until
Until
we've
we
gone through all the
finish going
chapters.
through everything.
Okay, and Sarah's gonna put the one that we had today on the website.
I think she said she was gonna attach it to either the notes or the agenda or something like that.
I think she's attached it to the agenda in the past, hasn't she?
Yes.
Okay. I suspect that'll be what happens.
All right, thank you, everybody. I've got to.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a great
Back
day.
the office by noon.
Would you mind unplugging me over there?
So,
I never called.
now, there is a
Well, see, man, good luck.
difference between like a
Is he doing the same
modified
thing?
arm's length transaction and a non-arm's length transaction.
Right, that's why I was,
Yeah, so, but,
I asked that question,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't need to.
Maybe someday get that.
You,
yeah.